Poland, a country making good on its promise to supply Ukraine with fighter jets to help it push back the Russian invaders. Now, this marks a major move in ally support of Ukraine, and it increases the possibility of the conflict morphing into a bigger war. Today, Poland's president said that his country will transfer 4 of its Soviet-era MiG-29s to Ukraine as early as next week. Poland would then become the first NATO member to send warplanes to Ukraine. And the president saying 4 planes are just the beginning.
Firstly, within the next few days, we will hand over, as I understand, 4 fully operational aircraft to Ukraine. The rest are being prepared and serviced, and they will be handed over after that.
Well, Poland will be the first to send fighter jets. Will other NATO members follow suit? This is what Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, this is what she had to say today.
Fighter jets have long been on the Ukrainians' wish list, and it is something we're discussing in the group of allied nations. So yes, it is something we're discussing with our allies, and it is something that the group of allies is considering. I will not get into any further details, but it is a big wish from Ukraine.
All right, we want to pull in our correspondent now and NATO reporter Terry Schultz. Terry, it's good to see you. I mean, this is an interesting development. We've got Poland charging ahead here, saying in just a couple of days we're going to have 4 fighter jets for you. We know next door here in Germany, they've said absolutely not. Has there been reaction within NATO to this?
Well, Washington, along with Germany, maintains the line that absolutely not. And you heard Denmark there say it's being discussed, but we haven't heard any other countries really charge to the front like Poland has. Slovakia may be the closest to agreeing to send some of its MiGs. Now, you remember, Brent, that we were sort of at this stage before, months ago, with Poland being very willing to send its fleet of MiGs, in fact, the whole fleet at that time, to Ukraine, but it wanted to send them through Ramstein Air Base and thereby make it sort of a U.S. transfer, and then it fell apart. So this isn't entirely unexpected that it comes back to Poland sending MiGs, but we certainly didn't know to expect it this week or today.
I mean, what did you make there, Terry, of hearing Denmark say that more shipments could be on the way? I mean, it's not the first country, I think, that people would expect to hear making an announcement concerning fighter jets.
Well, she didn't make an announcement concerning fighter jets. She said it's being discussed. And being discussed in a group of countries that may have fighter jets is a long way from sending them. I mean, we've already seen the UK training pilots. The US has said it would train pilots. And so getting some people ready to possibly fly planes at some point is a long way from saying we're going to give you those planes. Many NATO allies feel that this is not the right move, Germany included.
You know, we've talked many times about sending weapons to Ukraine. When we were talking about battle tanks, for example, there was also this resistance to that. Now those tanks are, they are in the country. That's a done deal. Are we going to see the same development when it comes to fighter jets?
Well, Ukraine certainly hopes so, and that's why it keeps asking for things it's been told it's not going to get, because if it had stopped asking when it was initially told no tanks, you wouldn't see tanks on their way to Ukraine right now. So I think that now with Poland breaking this sort of blockade, which is, to some extent an emotional, a psychological block on sending this kind of weapons, you may well see other countries. Like I said, Slovakia has been talking about it, and Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin, not even yet, of course, the leader of a country inside the NATO alliance, got in a bit of hot water last week when she was in Ukraine, and she said Finland may think about sending fighter jets. That did not go down well with her own government, who said that that's news to them.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering if there's some psychology here that we should be picking up on. The fact that Poland is making this announcement, and they did promise about a year ago to do what they say they're going to do now within a couple of days. But the fact that they're pushing forward and right now going it alone, does that reveal maybe divisions within NATO that have not been made public?
well, it's more than psychology, it's geography. It's not only the polls that say give Ukraine everything it needs. The Baltic states regularly say whatever Ukraine asks for, whatever we can provide, let's send it now. And the divide between NATO is not just political, it is geopolitical. If you're a country with a border with Russia, a border with Ukraine, a border with Belarus, you very much feel that unless we give Ukraine everything it needs to stop Russia, we're next. So these countries would say to those allies who warn, oh, this might be an escalation, the escalation, they say, would be letting Russia win in Ukraine.
DW's Terry Schultz with valuable analysis tonight. Terry, as always, thank you. There were two announcements from Poland today. Fighter jets being sent to Ukraine and the arrest of 9 people accused of spying for Russia. Poland says it broke up a Russian spy ring intent on disrupting the transfer of weapons from Poland to Ukraine.
The Internal Security Agency has detained 9 people suspected of collaborating with Russian operatives. The suspects carried out activities against Poland and prepared acts of sabotage for Russian intelligence. Evidence indicates that the group monitored railway routes, and the tasks included documenting the transport of weapons for Ukraine. The suspects were also preparing acts of sabotage aimed at paralyzing the supply of equipment, weapons, and aid to Ukraine. Our officers secured cameras, electronic equipment, and GPS transmitters, which were to be mounted on train deliveries bound for Ukraine.
Military analyst Marina Miron, she joins me now. She is with the War Studies Department at King's College London. She is in Munich tonight. Good to see you again, Marina. I want to start with Poland and those MiG-29 fighter jets that it is sending to Ukraine. Talk to me about how significant this is for the Ukrainian military.
Thank you for having me, as always. It is a significant move by Poland because there were discussions about F-16 and potentially the British Typhoon. However, the problem is that it would require training of pilots and air crews, which would take at least a year. So sending a Soviet MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine would indeed boost the capabilities of the Ukrainian Air Force, and there is no need to train the pilots because they already know how to use the technology. And the broader issue here is not the fact that Poland pledged to send those fighter jets. I think Poland signaled a year ago that it was ready to send those fighter jets. However, somehow a year ago, the situation was different and nobody really followed up on that. The other issue is there are only 4 fighter jets being sent to Ukraine, as we know, and we know that Poland has about 30 of them. So the question is, would the Polish government send the rest of the jets, and how will European allies follow suit or not? Will they be pledging any aircraft of their own, and how this is going to play out? And I'm looking at what happened with the tanks when Poland kind of led this topic, whether it will come to delays here as well.
Well, you know, it is interesting that maybe there are parallels with the tanks and with fighter jets. Poland promised a year ago to send fighter jets. Yeah, and it's taken a year. Now, looking at this through the eyes of a military analyst, I mean, what took it so long? I mean, can you explain? Is there a military reason for waiting a full year to provide it with 4 fighter jets?
I think the reason is more political because at that time Poland wasn't ready to transfer the jets directly, and because the situation was different, we had a long discussion about HIMARS and whether it would cross any lines. And so there was this fear of provoking Russia, essentially. So fighter jets, even HIMARS with long-range missiles were out of question, let alone supplying Ukraine with fighter jets. And I think it's one of the reasons. So from a military perspective, obviously, Ukraine would have benefited from getting those fighter jets a year ago.
And Soviet-era fighter jets, I mean, that sounds like you're sending some antiques across the border, but I understand these planes, they have been upgraded with modern technology. Can we assume that Ukrainian pilots would be able to jump into the cockpit?
Well, there will be some sort of training to make them learn how this new technology works, but it will not require 1 or 2 years of training because I assume that they would be trained on the earlier version. So it would be sort of an upgrade, but it wouldn't be completely different from, let's say, if they were to use an F-16 or a Typhoon.
And Poland seems to be at the center of the whole weapons story for Ukraine, particularly this week. Also today, there was a report that Polish authorities have arrested 9 foreigners who are accused of spying for Russia. And what the report says that these 9 foreigners were surveilling Poland's railway infrastructure to disrupt any transfer of heavy weapons from Poland to Ukraine. Is this just a one-off, a spy story, or do you see this as having the potential of escalating and expanding this conflict?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think we have already seen instances of people being arrested. For instance, in Germany, it was a mole who was sending information to Moscow, according to reports. And I think that Moscow does still operate a vast network of agents or those sympathetic Russian cause to gather and provide intelligence. And this is not surprising because Russia's own intelligence apparatus has failed several times, both in Ukraine and pre-invasion, when Putin was misinformed about the capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces. This is the result of the military reform, to a certain extent, of the military reform in 2010, when the infamous GRU was essentially slayed. And so I think that it will not cause any escalation per se, but we can look at it from the perspective of provocation. And we have seen historical cases of kind of exchange of spies, for instance, between the United States and Russia. So I think we just have to be wary, and we have to ensures that our intelligence agencies are able to uncover those schemes by Russia. And seemingly, Russia is losing its edge if these people were arrested.
Military analyst Marina Miron from King's College London. Marina, as always, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much.